others are now the ones setting the bar for both aspiration and achievement. But always be humble. Have the wisdom to recognize the best in others while always demanding the best from yourself. All of you are now headed for university, which is a good time to set goals and devise a plan. Remember, failing to plan is planning to fail. You need a roadmap, but be prepared for unintended detours, confusing signs, and closed roads. Don't be afraid or unwilling to change. Enjoy the journey wherever it takes you because it's your life. Be prepared to occasionally fail because that's what successful people do. They learn from it, they grow from it, and they take action from that learning. I know that COVID has meant that graduation looks a little different for you than you expected, but the achievement is still there. You've put in the same hard work, and you've learned and grown from the experience. So congratulations on your well-deserved success, and best of luck to you in your journey going forward.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our webinar about what want to learn by understanding, and we'll show you how. This session is going to be a 30 minutes workshop. Before we begin, I would like to explain about the meeting etiquette. First of all, join the meeting. I can see that you all have already done that. And secondly, we would appreciate if you could mute your microphone. Okay, we hope this will give you a better webinar experience. Thirdly, please pay attention to the presenters. Should you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we will address them at the end of the workshop. Lastly, when you're called, we hope you can unmute yourself and start talking. All right, so we would like to thank each and everyone for following and observing the meeting etiquette. I'm very excited to introduce our speakers today. Okay, first off, we have Ms. Vignesh. Yes, this is Ms. Vignesh, the NYP coordinator at Fairview International School, Ipoh, and the head of subject for design. She has 27 years of experience in teaching and another 2 years of experience in pedagogical leadership. She graduated with a degree in information technology. She believes that every child deserves an equal and unbiased learning environment. The International Baccalaureate program at Fairview has been the catalyst that brings out each child's hidden talent and potential. Next, we have Dr. Gurdev Singh, has been teaching biology at Fairview International School, Kuala Lumpur since August 2020. He graduated with Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery from International Medical University. He shifted gears into education to inspire young learners to open themselves up to new experiences and role models to pursue or achieve what they desire. He strongly believes that IB programs at Fairview are designed to encourage intellectual curiosity in young people and to provide them with the knowledge, conceptual understanding, skills, reflective practices, and more importantly, attitudes necessary to become self-directed lifelong learners. Without further ado, it is my honor to present to you our speakers for today, Ms. Vignesh and Dr. Gurdev.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle, for the introduction. As Ms. Michelle said, my name is Vigneshwari. Now, let's talk about IDU. IDU stands for Interdisciplinary Unit. Now, IDU, let's use the short form to say it since it's such a long word. IDU is one of the core elements of IB curriculum framework. So this is one of the specialties that you see in Fairview International Schools. We ensure our IDUs are meaningful and purposeful. So as you can see, the word interdisciplinary basically means we combine the knowledge that the child has gained from different units or different disciplines in order to be able to produce something that is meaningful and purposeful at the end. In order to make such an effective integration of different disciplines, it needs the sensitivity of knowing the correlation between the discipline before it can be integrated. Our aim is to ensure that the integration process enables the students to independently identify the importance of, as well as demonstrate their understanding of the disciplines that we integrate. We can't say that we'll only integrate 2 disciplines because it depends as they progress in their grade level. Now, what is the aim of having IDU? Why has Fairview gone into this particular initiative? One of the reasons is in order to have a deeper understanding of a skill or a knowledge that we are imparting to a child, they must understand the conceptual understanding based on their environment and what's around them. IDU allows the usage of that. As we know, nothing is silos in this world. Everything that we study, everything that we learn, and everything that we experience has a certain connectivity to the other elements in our life. So IDU is a structured way of ensuring that our children understands the depthness of their subjects and their disciplines that they learn. Besides that, the other aim that we have is to ensure that the children has gained the methods of having multiple discipline learning. For example, a child takes 10 subjects in their middle years program, 8 subjects or 9 subjects. These subjects are not standalone subjects. And the skills they learn in different subjects are widely different. But how do they have that middle groundwork to know how to take one from a discipline and apply it to another? They learn this in IDU. So this is another aim, to be able to have the child understand the tools, the learning processes, and being able to apply it across their discipline. Besides this, we also want to ensure that the child becomes an inquirer, being able to question that understanding and not just be able to accept what we say. Looking at the phenomena, let's look at what's happening around us now, COVID. And due to COVID, we have a lot of SOPs, as they say, standard operating procedures. Currently, recently, what's happening in this week, I'm sure you'll be getting in your WhatsApp messages about ivermectin, why we are not using ivermectin, why doctors are encouraging it, why they're discouraging it. We don't look at it from one point of view. We want the child to be able to look at it from multiple point of views. So by having this IDEO unit, which seems like a structured unit in IB, they'll be able to take the concepts they learn, the pedagogy they learn in IDU, and apply it in their real life situations and environment, being able to explain the phenomena, being able to justify when something is put forward to them and not just simply accept it as at its face value. Moving on from that, we would also want the child to be able to reflect and communicate the person's idea. This is one of the things that we see lacking in most curriculum. When a child is asked, can you explain? Can you justify? As they say, the higher thinking order. Can you synthesize? Can you provide facts? The child is not able to move further than the facts that is covered in their curriculum, which we do not want that in IB. We want not only for the child to be able to understand the interdisciplinary units or how each discipline relates with each other, we want the child to be able to articulate that understanding factually to other people as well, to be able to defend their understanding. So if a child were to say that something is not right or something is not correct, it should not be, it's just that my personal feeling. Personal feelings are important. Yes, we understand that. But then from that education point of view, from an academia point of view, they should be able to give multiple reasons. And the reason should not be bounded by one discipline only. As we know, nobody stays silos in this world. Moving further, lastly, the reason why IDU is an integral part of IB education is because we want the child to have that excitement of discovering intellectuality, to be able to have intellectual discovery, to be able to see how things relates to each other, how even the smallest ant that you find in that animal kingdom relates to that farmer who's trying to plant the best potato so that they'll have best quality Pringles potato chip, or why that particular potato chip bottle is done in a circular way with that cap and not in a different matter or material. So that's what we want to aim for. Now, Fairview, under the IB's framework, has done this successfully, and we would like to share to you how we have done it so far. So for that, let me pass the mic to Dr. Gurdev.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Vignesh, for the wonderful representation of how MYP IDU is being conducted and a lot of elaboration on that. And thanks, Ms. Michelle, for that introduction too. All right, so basically how interdisciplinary program or interdisciplinary learning process is conducted in Fairview is very much going along with how the learning process is being conducted in Fairview itself. So we believe a lot in inquiry-based learning, whereby this is a learning through asking and answering questions. Rather than just receiving information, instructions begins with questions, and then students are guided to find answers and make meaning from them. So in IDU itself, this is how we first conduct the particular lesson to sort of like unpack the whole learning journey in interdisciplinary unit. So how do we exactly introduce IDU? There are various methods of doing this. IB belief, in fact, IB philosophy believes that the lens through which a unit of instruction is taught should have some global impact. And there are 6 global contexts which foster learners' awareness beyond our local communities. So we can start off an IDU by asking questions or by asking guiding questions to students on what are the global contexts that they would want to further, explore. And then from then on, the subject-specific criteria or the subject-specific outcomes could be integrated between 2 or 3 disciplines, because we believe that learning should not only be focused on one subject-specific alone. I mean, although that is the ideal way of learning, but a lot of questions, a lot of new insights or deeper knowledge or deeper understanding can actually be promoted and fostered when one would want to connect 2 or 3 disciplines so that a product can be achieved at the end of the day. So that is the second way of doing it. So you'll be wondering, how do we then sort of like go detail into each of these components? So that is when the concepts of the subject comes in, whereby we explore the key concept, or we explore the related concept that forms the disciplinary depth of each units that has been integrated within that particular interdisciplinary learning processes. So if you would move on to the next slide to actually see how does the visual representation of IDU would look like. So if you could see the Venn diagram over the extreme right under the heading of visual representation, you could see that we have got 2 intersecting circles. So 2 circles that intersects in the center. One is a complete white shape that is belonging to one subject, and then the darker most shape is another subject. However, the boundaries are blurred in the center of the intersection. And how does this look like in an actual materialized learning process? That will be depicted in the subsequent slide, which will be now. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes. So there is one IDU that we have conducted in one of our academic quarters. So since I'm from the science background, so what we have taught our M1 students that there are some features of planet Earth that could also be sort of found in other planets. And we wanted the students to have that curiosity being sparked so that they can actually continue finding relevant information, guided information on which other planets that actually shows possible habitable features of Earth. And we narrowed it down to planet Mars. So as a subject teacher, as a science teacher, we actually planned out the IDU process so that students were given guided questions, guided objectives, so that they can actually tap into what are all the features that represents the habitable features on Earth, which is also found on planet Mars. And this is not covered, if you ask me personally, this is not covered in their subject specific when they were actually learning about planets in their science subject. So this is what I meant by sparking the intellectual curiosity so that they can transfer whatever the skills that they have learned in class to gain a new learning, to promote the deeper learning. Yeah, so I'll pass the floor to Ms. Vignesh, who will continue with the designing component of the interdisciplinary stuff.
As my colleague mentioned, it is a collaborative subject between design and science. In the concept of design, where a child will learn how to use certain IT tools to be able to create a product, but we want to make sure the child is able to create a product that is suitable for an environment. So when we talk about suitable to an environment, they must understand the needs of their target clients or who is asking them to make it. So when we have this interdisciplinary unit with science, the students understand we are creating a colony in Mars. We want to make the colony, the concept of the colony popular with the target clients. We need to entice the clients. How do we entice them? We have the branding concept where they use the tools, 3D rendering tools that they learn in class to come up with branding and promotional elements. And it is tied to that particular concept of learning or living in Mars that they have. So this is what you can see in that IDU, which we did for our M1 students. Now, our IDU from M1 to M5 will differ in the depth of it because as they progress in different grade levels, their understanding is further reinforced in their own discipline and they'll be able to create even more wonderful products or amazing products with their knowledge. We truly believe interdisciplinary learning is very, very beneficial to the child. Don't you not agree with me, Dr. Gurdev?
Yes, I do. I do very much agree with you. Well, compared to other curriculums, the IB curriculum that has been taught in Fairview permits students to apply knowledge in new ways, in generating new understanding, which ultimately increase their mental flexibility. And this is exactly what I meant by preparing students to be a lifelong learners. And not only that, by integrating two different subjects so that they create an intentional product, it also sort of increases their awareness towards the global context or the global issue that is happening around themselves. So this sort of provides a holistic approach to the study of the complex issues and ideas. And then it demonstrates significant life skills as well, which is the value of cross-disciplinary collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. What we want the child to be able to achieve is the preparation needed for real life exposure and real life learning, regardless whether it is in their educational arena, academic arena, or when they go out and become meaningful citizens to their community. That's the purpose of IDU. So do we have any questions?
Hold on, let me unmute myself and add myself to the spotlight. All right, so thank you, Ms. Vignesh and Dr. Gurdev. It was indeed an informative information that you have provided to us just now. We are trying to make it brief so that everyone has enough info just to ask the right questions. We are open to answering questions from our participants now. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat box and we will address them really soon. So we've got 2 questions so far. So while the speakers are preparing for questions to come in and to answer your questions, let me just go through some of the information of the organizers for today's talk. So Fairview International School Ipoh is a top IB school in Malaysia, and the school has won multiple awards, including the International Award in Teaching and Learning, the 5 Stars Quality Assurance title by the Malaysian government, as well as being one of the members of the Council of International Schools, the CIS. Fairview's successes include smooth career transition, high academic success, and great communication. Our high academic achievement is obviously, it's so obvious because by just looking at our latest IBDP results, besides the extremely high average score, we also have 100% passing score for 7 years. At Fairview, we believe our success is a result of our uniqueness through our IB pedagogies, which we are going through today, our Prosper at FIS series of events, and Everyone's a Musician program. Now, please feel free to contact us through the different channels displayed on the screen. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we would love you to be part of our FIS community. We also have our assisting Fairview parents with us today who are already part of our FIS community, and they may have questions that we would like to highlight here as well. So for those who have questions, please do stay, and our speaker will address them now. For those who need to leave, we wish you a lovely weekend, but let's do stay for a while because it's still early, right? What time is it now? It's 11:26, so yes. We started at 11:05. So let's give us another 10 minutes to run through some of the questions. Okay, Ms. Vignesh and Dr. Gurdev. So the question 1, is IDU an approach or a subject by itself?
IDU is an approach. If you cluster IDU as a subject, it's actually a very good question. Should IDU be a subject? It should not. One of the reasons is a subject will create its own discipline, whereas in IDU, we want to use interdisciplinary knowledge. We want the child to be engaged where they can take everything they've learned from different disciplines and bring it together. So the way we do it is we structure our subjects to have that reflection of the related topics from its interdisciplinary units. For instance, when myself, my design department with Dr. Gurdev's science department were doing that interdisciplinary unit planning, we sit together and we see what are the topics that we want to cover and how would it correlate. Let's Dr. Gurdev input on that. So when we planned on that, so we had that science part of it as their requirement, and being from the design department, I had my requirement.
Yes, that is how normally the entire team, the selected team that is going to go for the IDU unit will come in a collaborative setup, and then we will sort of discuss about where the merging point is, where the entry point is, and then from there we will develop a very, very detailed unit plan, making sure that we tap into the right information so that the whole purpose of IDU becomes more meaningful rather than seeing it as two separate subjects that has to be an intersection for them to sort of integrate whatever they have learned from science and whatever they have learned from design for this instance, so that the outcome is more purposeful and more meaningful and they can gain a deeper understanding of that.
Now, since both of you are teachers, so I'm going to speak from a perspective of a parent. I'm a parent, a Fairview parent myself. So is it safe to say that IDU is an approach where every quarter the academic team will align a few subjects together, not all, but a few subjects together to learn in deeper understanding of a specific topic? So it could be a match between design, science, and arts. And then the next quarter, it could be another match of music, maths, and science. I don't know how that match, but that's how, I mean, it depends on the topic, right? So is it safe to summarize it as such?
Yes, it's actually a very good summary, Ms. Michelle. Okay, it is true.
We have a next question where it says that PYP UOI is not IDU in MYP. I would say UOI is an approach as well. So the approach is similar, but just the way it is being done probably a little different, right?
Yes, because in PYP, they have transdisciplinary units. Because at their age, they need to get their footings right about their concepts that they learn. So by the time when they come to middle years program, they are able to slowly but surely interconnect the skills that they've learned and the knowledge they've gained from each of the disciplines.
Great. So we have a next question, which is, would assessment in MYP based on individual subject, or is it a student performance in IDU that gets assessed too? This is a very good question. I mean, if you have 3 subjects, how do you do the assessment? Is it by individual subject, or is it by the whole IDU as a unit?
This is where the collaborative planning between the department becomes utterly important.
Yeah.
Because when my students were doing design and Gurdeff's students were doing science,
Yeah.
we still have the science content, we still have the design content. The way we collaborate is based on their assessments that they do. Because end of the day, the purpose of their assessments is to show understanding. We don't bog the students down by having multiple assessments here and there. Bogging is done in our part, the way we plan, the way we collaborate. Where for the students,
the reason I laugh is because when you say you don't bog the students, I can imagine my daughter pulling out her hair with the MYP program.
Yeah, I believe that is when it is done in phases, right? There is a planning whereby they have to sort of like I remember one of my students creating a Gantt chart to see how they can actually manage their time effectively. And I think doing that at a very young age of M1, I wished I had those skills when I was of that age group. Life would have been easier.
Yes,
it's true. I totally agree with you, because I came from conventional education, and IB came in later, so unfair. And I saw my daughter learning. Although she is stressful, or she does find sometimes a little bit overwhelmed with the work. But amazingly, she's enjoying every moment doing it. It's just like us enjoying our work when we are doing it. So, can you imagine kids going to study and enjoying, and then they will work hard naturally. You don't have to, get a tuition teacher to oversee them while they study. Okay.
And for the others who are not so sure who's her daughter is a perfectionist. And she is very good with research. And because I've taught that girl for so many years.
That's because the mother is a very picky one. We have Jack here asking if you could explain a little bit more the difference between IB versus IGCSE. Any of you have taught IGCSE before and could share on this?
I think that should be Dr. Gurdev, your forte.
I taught IGCSE for like 1 year.
I see. I started off with Cambridge IGCSE curriculum actually, and I realized that it's very it's as I move on with the curriculum, it becomes very subject specific and not undermining, because every curriculum have got their own way of dealing things. They have got their own assessment objectives that they would want to achieve.
Yes.
But looking prospectively, creating 21st century learners, I myself, if I were to put into that environment, I realized that there are certain skills which I would only pick up if I were to actually be in a university setup or in a tertiary education. So I was wondering, why must I wait till I reach that level of education and then I start learning new lifelong skills, which will put me in, which will give me an extra edge compared to all my peers of the same age group. So I was wondering, will there be a curriculum, will there be a framework that would actually prepare me with all these skills before even getting to that particular stage of learning? And that is what IB programs is all about. And Fairview being one of the top-notch IB schools within the region, I know for a fact that actually the framework that is planned in Fairview certainly taps into all of these 21st century learning skills, like as early as PYP programs. So it sort of, as they move on from one level to another level, the skills, the integration of the skills is becoming more and more visible. And eventually, when these students, I'm a DP teacher, so I also teach the IB students in Fairview when they are in DP. I could see there are lots of skills that they have actually learned from MYP and as well as when they are they are joining since reception. Like I have some students that they are from reception, and IB programs in Fairview has really molded them into students who can actually do independent research with minimal supervision from the teachers, and they come prepared for the class. So our role is switched from being just a teacher to rather being to being a facilitator. So I guess that's a new insight to this inquiry-driven classroom. So
this question, I just couldn't stop myself from sharing as well.
No worries.
Because
no worries.
my son joined MYP when he was in year 8, and my daughter joined when she is in P4. So
Right.
I can clearly see the difference, and I think most of us here, parents, if you're Malaysians, you would have gone through the national curriculum. And if you want to really try to differentiate between IGCSE, IB, and national curriculum, I just want to put a simple analogy for you to imagine. I'm sure I don't have to explain about national curriculum, you'll be aware. And to me, IGCSE is the same as national curriculum, but the difference is in the specific topics that you learn in the books. It's just different. But for example, we learn about Malay history, Malaysian history, but in IGCSE, you learn about world history. And we learn about geography on which state in Malaysia manufactures the most pineapples. But in IGCSE, you probably learn which country manufactures the most. But the way they learn is the same. Maybe lesser number of students in the class, and the teacher would be teaching in English. So I would put that as quite similar system. You go in, you study, you revise, and then you go in for examination. At the point where I switched my kids from national curriculum to IB is because I noticed one thing. I wasn't preparing them for the future, like what Dr. Gudev said just now. And I think it's unfair to our kids that we teach them for 6 years of primary and 5 years of secondary to just listen to the teacher, study, exam, don't ask too many questions. But when they go to university, we tell them, nope, wrong. Whatever you've been doing for the past 11 years, you have to switch it to another way. So a lot of people, the youngsters, our new generation Z now, they are they have the knowledge, but they just don't have the skills to do the necessary. And I think skills is something that you don't just learn out of books. You need to cultivate it with routines and habits. So I always share with parents that imagine you have 6 years of primary and 5 years of secondary, drilling yourself to work. So automatically when you graduate or when you're in university, you are a hardworking person. I mean, even if the most lazy person in the world, I mean, being teachers, some of your students who are lazy, right? And even the laziest one would not be the lazy to a point where they only study the day before exam. They can't, because in IB, you have to do it every day. Yeah. So, okay, let's see if there's any more questions. Okay, we have one interesting one here. May I know whether reducing PYP into 5 years will affect the children's learning in MYP, especially in this COVID period where they learn via online school? They need to adapt to so many changes in the learning within a short period of time. Well, this is a very Fairview parent-specific questions, I think. Well, I'll just touch a little bit before I pass on to the speakers in case they want to add on. I trust and I have seen that the Fairview has planned their primary 5 years and MYP 5 years in such a way that there is a smooth transition from primary to secondary. So if your kid is joining Fairview for the very first time in MYP 1, and he is coming from standard 4 in national curriculum or IGCSE, then I would say, yes, there might be an issue. But if you were in our PYP program, you would know that we took around 1.5 to 2 years before we did the transition from 6 years PYP to 5 years PYP. So your kid is more than ready to go into MYP. I've seen my kids transiting into MYP, and also some of the students who are in P5 last year, and then they went into M1. And during the MYP transition, they were sharing with me, teacher, so scary, there's so many things. But trust them, because after 2 or 3 months, you will notice that their maturity goes to another level. I've seen it in many years of my experience observing them. Gurdev and Vignesh, do you want to add anything to this?
Just to add, I do understand parents' concern, as we actually compare. We usually compare IB with another system. However, IB is unique by itself. So when PYP comes to 5 years, it is done based on a curriculum that is developed to cover a primary year's learning experience within that 5 years. At the same time, we don't use age as a benchmark to see the child's ability. So prior to having that 5 years framework, a proper study has been done on child's cognitive learning ability and the topics that should be related, and that they can move on to the middle years program. So as far as I do understand very well the concern, but do have confidence on us that it's been done after a thorough research. Okay, so that's about it from me.
Okay, so let's have a last questions for the day before we wrap it up. After M5 assessment, is IBDP the only option to progress, or are there cases where students join university matriculation program? I can say a little bit, but do you have anything to say? I'm so busybody, right? That's because
you're the experience. No, she's the experience.
That's because my son finished IBDP too, and then after my son's batch, we have a few batches who exited, and they consulted us on where to go. M5 MYP assessment is created in 2016. So now it's 2021. If in 5 years, it has won many e-assessment awards. However, compared to IGCSE or SPM, some institutions, they may still be trying to keep up with the latest trend. So it really depends on which university or which organization you're applying to. But from what I know and from our students' experience, wherever you go, the moment you show them your MYP M5 assessment, it's just the people who doesn't know what it is. But once you check into it, the management staff or the people in the education industry, or they go into, let's say, MQA or their admission department to check in detail, then they realize that, oh, this is part of the accepted requirements to enter into matriculation or to apply for scholarship or something. It's just some people who have not heard of it and say, no, I've never heard of it. Do you have this and that? Do not take their answer too quick for it. Ask them to go back to the books and check, or in their website or in the internet. And even in JPA scholarship application, you will see IB over there. And we've got a vast number of students under the Mara Institute taking IB as well. So it is recognized. It's just that it probably take people some time to know about it.
Yeah.
So we need to advocate and go out and educate people.
Yes. Just to add on to you, Michelle, you're absolutely right, whatever you have said, because I remember two of my homeroom students were actually wanting to apply to IMU's Foundation in Science, and they realized that the MYPE assessment was not part of their requirements in the brochure. And then after that, they went and did the thorough research, and they got to know that e-assessment is actually equally recognized, and it matches all that standard required to enter or to enroll in their foundation program. So I guess it's just us that needs to be, publicizing that the e-assessment is very much recognizable and it follows all the standards required and everything else.
I think we've been too silent about it. So
exactly,
Michelle, we encourage full promotion on e-assessments.
Yep. So thank you very much for having with us this morning. Yes, thank you very much for the comments that the parents are coming in. I thank you for being with us. We've got some students here as well. who messaged us very well. So that's the end of our session today. You may leave the room, and we thank you for joining us this morning for this short webinar, with more webinars coming up for PYP and for MYP programs. We will try and give you at least one day notice in future. And we hope that you could join us just to deepen our understanding on IB. Thank you, Fairview parents, and thank you to parents who are interested in Fairview's IB program. Thank you.